Welcome, everyone, to the Flourishing Workplace podcast. My name is Connie Jacob, and I am so thrilled today to have Kaylor Betts, who I have been following on social media for a while and watching his advocacy for mental health. And if you're not following Kaylor, we're going to make sure his social handles are in the show notes. But phenomenal story. And I want to welcome you, Kaylor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I can't wait for this conversation. It should be good.
Yes, I've been excited all week because your story is so impacting and you're really putting yourself out there. And so for anyone who maybe doesn't know you and what your story is, I'm wondering if we could start there today with you telling us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I would love to. So, I usually start by saying, I'm going to give the cliff notes. There's obviously some complexities to it, but I'll give the cliff notes. For most of my life, circumstantially, from the outside looking in, my life was great. You would have looked at, everything I had. We were kind of a, lower to middle class, but we had what we needed and everything was sufficient as far as our resources. And, I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, which, is a very safe and great environment to grow up in. I had friends. I was kind of the popular guy and I was the jock. Um, Very good at sports, a good athlete. And, I was kind of the class clown. I struggled in school, but I was a class clown and, had quite the personality. However, internally, I was broken and I was in a battle with my mind for most of my life. And, I didn't, even before I really knew what it was, right? In school, especially in those days, I don't know how it is now. I hope it's better, but I don't think we ever discussed anxiety, depression, mental health. We never talked about any of those things. So I just kind of thought it was normal to experience these things, right? I was always anxious and I was, I would get really depressed and moody. My ADHD was off the charts. And yeah, I just really struggled. I really, really struggled. I never felt comfortable in my body. So what I did was I overcompensated, right? So that's where the class clown came in. I got into some trouble and got into some substances and yeah, just got into trouble, right? Because that's often our way of coping if we don't know what else to do and we're not really, I never had anyone that was helping me with it. Um, in those days, and my parents, God bless them, they were doing the best they could with what they had, and they were also confused in terms of what was going on. And yeah, I really was, like I said, in a battle with my mind till about my low 20s. And then I had an incident that changed everything. I actually found in my dad's car Tony Robbins tapes, and I believe it was like either Awaken the Giant Within or one of the cassettes tapes or the books that he had. And I started to listen to those, and it was like the first time I'll never forget. He fired me up so much, but he changed my perspective of everything. We don't have to be a victim of our mental health. We don't have to, if we're not thriving, if we don't have our soul lit on fire, if we're in a battle with our mind, we actually have more control over that than I even thought. I thought this was just a bad hand that I had been dealt. So ever since then, Connie, I went on an obsessive journey of personal growth, and I changed everything. I experimented with everything. I read every personal growth book and every psychology book and watched every TED talk, and I went to conferences and I surrounded myself with people who were growing as well too. And the rest is history. I've been on like a 13-year journey of transformation, obsessively, and I'm addicted to getting better at living life, right? And there's a lot of components to that. But and now I'm a coach, and I, have gotten to this beautiful place. Don't have it all figured out, but I've come a long ways, and that strikes such an emotion inside of me because when you go from breakdown to breakthrough or darkness to light, it's incredibly powerful, and I just want everyone else who is out there and who feels stuck in terms of their mental health and they don't know what to do and they think they just got drawn a bad hand and they don't realize how much control they can have over this. I want to help as many people as possible go through the same journey that I did.
Oh, I love that. And I love it when people turn their pain into purpose. I love it. And that's what you're doing. And I really appreciate you bringing up that, you weren't like a child that grew up in poverty and you weren't on the streets. You were well liked, you were popular, you had everything going on. And I hear this so much, Kaylor. I hear people say, like, if you only knew what I was going through. Like, oftentimes we look so great on the outside, but we're suffering on the inside. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that reminds us that mental health is affecting everyone, whether it's great mental health or we're struggling. Like, it really is a human thing. I love it. Um, what are you doing now in terms of your advocacy? I would love to hear, because what I read from what you write on your Instagram, I'm just like here's a man standing up for mental wellness. And I just think it's incredible.
Yeah, I think like when I look at advocacy, I may look about it in a little bit of a different way. There's kind of a few components to it. Number one, the first goal is to share my story. Because one of the things that I know is when you're struggling with your mental health and it's getting better, but often you think like you're the only one. You think that like no one else is really going through. I'm so unique in that. And the more people that come out and tell their story, and especially I would say someone like myself who, from the outside looking in, people think I have it all figured out, or I did have it all figured out. And just be honest and say, no, like I've struggled. I've dealt with depression and I've battled with anxiety for my whole life and ADHD and all these things. And I think that's a really powerful thing, because when we can change the dynamic of mental health to we're all in this together, right? There's power in numbers. And sometimes just being able to, say that, there's other people struggling and it's not just you. And not only that, but then encourage them and empower them to come out and tell their own story, which is a huge monkey off their back as well, too. I find when people come out and say that I struggle, it's like a really big monkey off their back. That to me is the first part of advocacy, is just being really vulnerable. And I think more males need to do that as well, too. And then the second part is, I'm going to be really real with you, Connie. I call myself not your average mental health advocate, because I think that a lot of people might just do it because, it's maybe we put a crown on it, and, maybe for clout or whatever you want to talk about. And then they just play it safe. And I did that in the beginning. And I think that mental health needs a really big shakeup. I think that I'm all for like Western clinical practices and stuff. Like, they definitely have their place, and thank God we have them, because they can perform miracles. But I think what we're not talking enough about is all of the things that we can be doing in our life, in our daily habits and our lifestyle, and everything from diet and things like meditation and gratitude and cold and hot therapy and like all these different things, right? So I'm kind of advocating now for everything outside of drugs, right? Because I don't prescribe drugs, psychotic drugs. I don't prescribe. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. So I work on all the things that we can do that are in our immediate control in our environment. And I think that we don't talk enough about that. And, not everyone buys into that. A lot of people say it's pseudoscience, and that, it is something that you're born with, and it's a disease, it's an illness that you have no control over. So I do get some pushback, but I'm just too passionate to stop. So I really want to advocate for the fact that we have a lot of power in our lifestyle over our mental health.
Yes. Well, and you're a living example of, you've lived this. How can anyone argue with the fact that, yeah, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, but look at Kaylor, like he struggles. Is there a genetic of this? Like, is this genetic for you, or is this?
Yeah. So my belief, and I mean, I'll proceed this with, I'm not a medical expert, but I've definitely done a lot of research. I've done a lot of reading, and obviously just through my own experiences and now working with clients, I really learned a lot about what I think the root causes and root causes are of our mental health. And I think that there was a guy named Francis Collins, and he was a practitioner. He was actually the head of the Human Genome Project. And he said something that really stuck with me. And I really believe that he's hit the nail on the head in terms of like where illness comes from, and including mental illness. He says, genes hold the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So I really believe that, yes, there are genetic components to mental health. I think that's very evident. I think research even shows that. I think that, people can be more prone, and it does run in one side of my family. It does run very heavily, mental health, mental illness, and mental health challenges. So I do think there's a genetic component to it, but I think that, like in that saying, yes, genetics hold the gun, so it obviously plays a factor, but environment, the things that we're doing, and our lifestyles, and what we're exposing ourselves to. I feel like a different person 20 years ago because I would have had a panic attack or anxiety. I was having numerous panic attacks every week. I was in a really, really dark place. And it was like, I just slowly but surely changed my lifestyle and my habits. And sure enough, and I know that sounds almost like too good to be true, it's not easy. It is not easy, with all the things that I've done. And maybe we'll get into the specifics, but man, it's not easy. But I really learned that we can change. And research is even showing this now. We can change our genetics. It's actually called epigenetics, and we can change our biochemistry through the things that we're doing in our environment.
Yes, 100%. I am with you. That is totally what I have noticed in my 20 years of resilience and mental health work, and I love the gun analogy, that genetics is the gun, but environment, it pulls the trigger. And I do think that you're living proof that we can take action. And if we need to remove ourselves from environments that are causing further depression or further anxiety, or taking that genetic and blowing it out of proportion, certain environments will make us more prone to feeling anxious or depressed. I'm with
And
you.
Connie, and Connie, so sorry to interject, but I want to just clarify, because sometimes when I say environment, just for the listeners, sometimes people think like actual environment. Like, environment can be everything from, yes, it could be your relationships, and even the content that you're exposing to can really change your psychology, no question. But it's also the food that we eat. It's the movement that we do. It's the going out into nature. It's your inflammatory markers. It's your blood sugar. It's your the list goes on and on. It could be a cold shower. It could be heat therapy. Like, it's everything. Environment is everything you're exposed to, and that's what I mean when I say the term environment.
100%. Yes. And I think that's good to clarify in case someone's wondering. Maybe I need to move to Hawaii. I don't know about you, but that would do better for my mental health. Maybe, I don't know, but it's true. And in our specific work here at Flourishing, we really try to impact the workplace. We're saying, what if work was the mental health boost of someone's day? What could that do for them? What could that do for them personally and for their family? And so, in your opinion, Kaylor, what do you think workplaces need in order to create an environment where there is this flourishing of the mind?
So this is why I like your mission, and I like your podcast name, because man, if we can make the the workplace flourish, like, let's look at it. I think the stats are like the average person spends like 60% of their life at work or something crazy like that. Like, so it's major. And unfortunately, and this is anecdotal, I don't know the research, is just from talking to people all the time over the years about their mental health. I would say the majority of people aren't really digging their job and digging their gig, right? And that, of course, does a massive number on our mental health. So here's the thing, Connie. I think that we need a couple things to change. I don't know if you know who Jay Shetty is, but some of the people that are listening will be, familiar with Jay Shetty. He says something I really like. He says, everyone on planet Earth is looking for two things. Doesn't matter who you are. He says, peace and purpose. Okay. So I think that that really is and someone just asked me the other day how I define success. And I think that's how I would define success as well too. If you've found inner peace, right? Meaning you're not in a battle with your mind. You're not, constantly like at war with your thoughts and your emotions. That's inner peace, but that's not enough, right? Like we can just be, you know, have inner peace and be, meditating all day long. But, eventually even Buddhist monks will get up and go do something, right? So we also need purpose. And if we don't have purpose, there's something innately inside of us. And if you don't have something that lights your soul on fire, if you don't have something that makes you jump out of bed in the morning, you are not going to have a healthy relationship with yourself, and you're not going to have healthy mental health. I really believe that. So what we need more of in the workplace is we need to understand that, employees are not motivated. This research even shows this. The biggest motivator is not money. It really isn't. So if you want to incentivize staff, money is actually not the best option. It can be a tool, but it's actually the way it's defined is it's people feeling like they're bringing value to the table. People that in the workplace that believe they are bringing worth to the table, and that's innately in our primal instincts as well too. If we didn't bring value to our tribes and our communities growing up, for most of human history, I should say, we were thrown to the wolves. It was life or death. So what really ignites a spark inside of us is to feel like we're really valued and that we're doing something important, right? And that to me is what purpose is. And what we need to do better in the workplace, in my opinion, to improve mental health is we need to create a deeper sense, get really clear on what is each individual contributing that is a mission that is beyond themselves, that helps other people, makes the world a better place, and that really they're good at, and that really evokes a deep emotion inside of them, right? That's where and look, the workplace is not always easy. Like my business, for example, is not always easy. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, that's for sure. But yet, I don't know what I would do without it. I don't, because I'm so lit up by it, because it evokes such emotion out of me. And I'm just so driven and passionate about it. So that's what we really need to clarify for people in the workplace is like, what are they doing that's deeper than just going in and just getting a paycheck and then having their 2 or 3 weeks off every year to go on vacation, right? We need to get really deep on what that purpose is.
Yes. Well, that was very well said. And I agree with you 100%. Our workplaces can really change the game for people, and it can get people unstuck, because you're tremendous. I mean, you've stumbled upon Tony Robbins, but you continued that journey. There's some people who need assistance and they need help. And I think that you've just given the workplace something that they can do that doesn't go beyond their scope of practice, and it doesn't go beyond their responsibility to be a counselor or anything like that to their employees, but just to invoke purpose. That's powerful.
For sure. And Connie, I'm going to add to that because I know some people might be listening and being like, Kaylor, I'm an accountant. I'm like, I work at a 9 to 5 in the office, and I'm in the oil field, or, whatever. Like, how can I find purpose out of that? And I would say that because we're just limited on time, I mean, I could talk for hours about it, but follow Simon Sinek's work. He's incredible. And he talks about, he has a book, he has 2 books that I would really recommend that for people, that if you're struggling to find out what your why is and what your purpose is and get a deeper fulfillment out of your work, there's Start With Why. Definitely read that. And then there's also his second book. It's a follow-up on that, and I think it's just How to Find Your Why. It's something along those lines. That you can find it on Google, but it actually walks you through practical steps on how to find that deeper sense of purpose and meaning out of your work, and it'll change everything. The other thing it does is it helps us get through the inevitable adversity of life. If you don't have something that lights your soul on fire, when things get tough and the adversity comes, you have no glue that's holding your life together. You have nothing to really make you push through that inevitable adversity. And yeah, we can get it from our kids. That's a huge sense of meaning and purpose. We can get it from a hobby and relationships. But because work is such a big part of our life, we need to get it out of work as well, too.
I agree. Well said. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast and sharing your story and sharing your journey. I think that you've given people perspective that there is opportunity where there's limitations, there's possibilities if we choose it. And I think that you're a living example of that. Thank you so much for being here, Kaylor, and all of Kaylor's website, social handles. It's all in the show notes. Be sure to follow him, check it out. And if you're looking to create that kind of workplace, well, look no further. We are here. Have a wonderful week, everyone.